Bésame, bésame, bésame otra vez. Que yo quiero sentir tus labios besando otra vez. Besa, besa, bésame un poquito. Besa, besa, besa.
I've dated a lot of guys with accents. I mean, one guy with an accent, and it's just two people from different countries who like each other. But when you've dated an English, Irish, Chilean, Swedish, and French guy, all within the span of a couple years, there's something else going on. And for me, it was that their accents temporarily disguised the fact that all of these guys had some fatal personality flaw. Like, in a French accent, I am a connoisseur of tea, and currently I only drink rooibos. Sounds pretty sexy, huh? But in an American accent, I'm a connoisseur of tea, and currently I only drink rooibos. It's pretty obvious that this guy is a pretentious douche. 3 months was kind of the sweet spot where the mystique of their accents faded enough for their true personalities to become clear to me. Like, I realized that my relationship with the English guy wasn't headed in the right direction when the sex appeal dropped from his repeated refrain, Laura, darling, don't I look marvelous in these skinny jeans? I'm not proud to say that most of these relationships ended with me discovering something that these guys took themselves too seriously about, and then me teasing them relentlessly until one of us broke up with the other. Like the Chilean, who in a moment of deep sharing confided in me, Laura, I have seen, like physically seen, the auras of people's souls, and they are beautiful. Now, it turns out he saw these so-called auras when he was taking the hallucinogen peyote. To be clear, seeing things is kind of the expected point of the drug. But apparently it was such a life-changing experience that he really wasn't happy when I kept on saying, do you see my aura now? I just couldn't help myself. By my late 20s, I was increasingly losing hope that I would ever find that guy who could really laugh at himself, and just as importantly, could make me laugh. And I was at a stage of life where I especially needed humor to break the mundane stress of writing my PhD dissertation, which at the time really meant that I was spending my days staring at my computer screen, playing Ken-Ken, and just not getting much done at all. So you have an idea of my frame of mind one night, March 2008, when I go to my friend's house for a dinner party. I'm in the kitchen when I hear a loud male voice in the hallway trying to use the scientific method to argue that The Big Lebowski is in fact a work of genius. I peek around the corner and see a dark, sexy-looking stranger. I go over to introduce myself, only to catch him surreptitiously scraping a $3 price tag off of the bottle of wine that he brought for the host. I see you're an aficionado of fine wines. I say, trying to be witty. He laughs and introduces himself. I'm Noop, rhymes with poop. I'm like, thank you, I will remember that. He then tells me that this is actually toned down from his younger years, when he would introduce himself, no joke, as, I'm Noop, like Snoop Doggy Dogg, without the S or the doggy dog. I begin to be quite charmed. We keep talking, and when a natural lull in the conversation comes about, like the 7-minute silence, I resort to the standard line of questioning. So, what do you do? He's like, it's not a big deal. It's nothing. It's too boring to talk about. Let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you. I mean, really. What about you? What do you do? I'm like, I'm working on my PhD. It's not going very well. But really, what do you do? He's like, well, I'm a global health doctor, and I just got back from Ghana, where I'm helping to reduce HIV transmission between mother and child. My first reaction is, not even an accent could disguise what a ridiculous statement that was. Oh, it's just a run-of-the-mill job. I'm just going to exotic locations and saving lives. I mean, false modesty is yet another fatal personality flaw. But my second reaction is, am I really gonna knock him for helping children in Ghana? I mean, if I do that, there's something wrong with me. So I'm just straight with him. I'm like, dude, that's an awesome job. You know that I know that that's an awesome job. So can you admit that you're a doofus for pretending otherwise? He laughs at himself in a completely redeeming way. He also assures me that since getting back from Ghana the week before, rather than writing up his work, he binge-watched Arrested Development. Could I have found someone who loved the Bluth family as much as me? My interest ramps up. At dinner, we sit on opposite sides of the table, stealing occasional glances. Post-dinner, and the party moves into the living room. For God knows what reason, the hostess has only one book on her coffee table, which is She Comes First, The Thinking Man's Guide to Pleasing a Woman. Chapter titles include The Tongue is Mightier Than the Sword, Avoid G-spotty Logic, and We've Come a Long Way. Now, you're probably thinking what I'm thinking, which is in this room of people who don't really know each other, we should definitely play charades with the chapter titles. I make the suggestion, teams are formed, and Noop and I are on opposing sides. Now, don't get me wrong, the charades are G-rated, considering that the chapter titles are distinctly not. Noop's creativity and enthusiasm when acting out chapter titles, such as Think Outside Her Box, makes my heart flutter. But the winningest moment is when Noop, through a complicated combination of syllables and rhymes, actually gets his teammates to realize that the final chapter title sounds like the Funnelingus Manifesto before they get the rhyme to clinch the win. By the time I leave that night, I'm excited with a jittery feeling that there just might be a real spark here. I even remember calling my mom the next day to tell her that I met someone that for the first time I felt a genuine and immediate connection with. And indeed, a few days later, I receive an email with the subject line, Viva la vulva. Presumably a chapter title in the book. Public service announcement. If you want to ask somebody out, you probably should not put the words Viva la vulva in the subject line. But destiny got involved, and by some miracle, the email is routed to my inbox rather than my spam. And also, by some miracle, I open it rather than deleting it. It's Noop asking me out on our first date. Now, 8 years later, after 5 years of marriage and with 2 little kids, I can say this with some perspective. Noop does have personality flaws. So do I, so does everybody. But for us, laughing at ourselves and laughing at each other has helped to keep our bond strong. He keeps me grounded when I go ballistic over Losing Longest Road and Settlers of Catan. And I bring him back to earth when he goes on yet another extended rant about how Disney movie plots lack logic. And when laughter doesn't work at resolving conflict between the two of us, I just imagine what he'd sound like with a French accent. I cannot change diaper right now. I need to take a nap. Sounds pretty sexy, huh?
Parce qu'avec l'épée que le pic on écrit l'encyclique sans apologie du clic, les remèdes de